Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. Today we are talking about Ahsoka Season 2. We have another interesting tidbit, and if you're new to my channel, if this is the first time you're discovering me, then first of all welcome. Make sure to subscribe, join the community, and check out my other videos. This is your one-stop shop for daily Star Wars news. It's a bit of a down period at the moment as we await the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but we do have some Ahsoka updates, so no more jibber jabber. Shall we dive into it? Let's go. Ahsoka Season 2 is going to give Star Wars fans something we've wanted to see for 33 years. Something we got a glimpse of in the opening episode of Season 1, but that we didn't get to see properly. I'm talking about the E-Wing class starfighter fully in action. This advanced combat fighter comes from the expanded universe. First introduced in one of my favorite Star Wars comic runs, Dark Empire, this nimble fighter is such an important part of New Republic history. And before the Ahsoka show, it made its Disney canon debut in the Poe Dameron comic run in 2018. So why is it so important? Following the Battle of Andor, the New Republic needed a modern, standardized starfighter. The E-Wing was created to replace the X-Wing, carrying forward its versatility but with huge tech improvements, stronger shields, heavier armor, and more powerful weapons than the X-Wing. In addition, its hyperdrive and sublight engines made it faster and better suited for long-range missions. And so when Star Wars fans learned it was coming to screen in Ahsoka's first season, we were ecstatic, but then disappointed. Its appearance was very brief, on Lothal. It was a thrilling moment, albeit not exactly an action scene. And this is where things are changing for Ahsoka Season 2. Because according to some leaked concept art from Celebration, we're going to see New Republic E-Wings in action against Thrawn. If we take for granted the cinematography is going to be great, the visuals are going to be impressive, this is an expanded universe fan's dream. But it does beg the important question of why they didn't do this in the sequel trilogy. Well, my friends, there is actually a canon reason they don't appear in episodes 7, 8, and 9. When Leia parted ways with the New Republic and the Resistance was born, they were an underfunded splinter group who relied on refurbished T-70 X-Wings and A-Wings. And at the same time on the New Republic front, they'd already long since downscaled their military, so X-Wings remains the reliable workhorse. And this is why Ahsoka Season 2 is going to be so great, because years prior to the sequel trilogy, before the New Republic collapses and before the rise of the First Order, we get to witness E-Wings in action. Something incredible to look forward to. And I suppose in a way seeing these in action against the Remnants Battalion reassures us that Dave Filoni isn't just trying to make the New Republic look like a group of incompetent bozos. This was a legitimate concern after Season 1. Whether it's Ahsoka or The Mandalorian, they haven't had the most flattering depiction. The escape of Moff Gideon, the amnesty program, how easy it was to infiltrate it, and then there was Senator Giono, a stubborn man not only unwilling to accept the threat of Thrawn, but also denied the existence of Baylan and Shin. He didn't believe in Imperial remnants or fallen Jedi, and so Hero was made to look like a bit of a mug, as we would say here in Britain. But at the end of the day, and this is something I've mentioned in the past, Grand Admiral Thrawn has to lose. He's not going to win this fight. The fact the sequels exist and Thrawn is nowhere to be seen, but Snoke exists, makes the Mandoverse somewhat predictable, because we know how things need to end. Some say he's returned to the Chiss ascendancy by then, but I think he's defeated. But it doesn't mean there aren't interesting stories to tell along the way. A great example is Peridea. We don't know the decisive fate of Sabine or Ahsoka, Shin or Baylan, so there are still plenty of unknowns. But returning to the E-Wings again for just a moment, one of my favourite Easter eggs from the opening episode is that the E-Wings astromech KE-4N4 is a callback to the Kenner toy design for R2-D2 from 1977. I thought this was really quaint, but I suppose it does go back to the question of if Star Wars is too self-referential. Nonetheless, let's move on to our next Star Wars update. Staying on the subject of the Mandoverse, my dear friends, Mark Hamill has opened up about Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and compares working with them on the Book of Boba Fett and Mando Season 2 versus working on the sequel trilogy with J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. And his words are pretty surprising, because over the years he's kind of gone back and forth about his experience. Before the release of The Last Jedi, he tried to warn Star Wars fans that this is not the same Luke you know from the original trilogy. But then, Mark Hamill said he understood Rian Johnson's vision. But then a few months ago, he doubled down on the Jake Skywalker discourse. He has gone back and forth. But now, like I say, he's talking about Luke in the Mandoverse, post-episode 6. And he praises Jon and Dave and says, quote, "Boy, do they get Star Wars," They get it. They're speaking the same language that George did, in a way that I questioned in the sequels. And for Mark, it's really about getting to explore a chapter of Luke's story that had been missing. There were books and comics, the expanded universe, but nothing canon, and nothing on screen, so fans never got to see Luke during his prime, and this is why Hamill says he treasures the Mandoverse, even though he doesn't know when Luke is going to appear again, and neither do we. And so Mark goes on to say this: "The reason I did Mando was that Luke had a beginning and an end. There was no middle. It was like making a trilogy about James Bond as a young boy, who first became aware of the Secret Service and wanted to be a part of it. Part 2 is him training to be an agent. Part 3 is earning his license to kill, and then the end. No From Russia with Love, no Dr. No, or Goldfinger. You never got to see Luke as a master Jedi at the peak of his powers. He was the most idealistic character in that series. He was someone who would take adversity and double down and come back and counter his setbacks, but we didn't see any of that. So when I got a chance, I thought, geez, this is wonderful." And I get what he's saying. He's definitely right, we never got to see Luke build his academy. The sequels take place after this enormous gap, and so the role of the Mandoverse is to fill those in. But it's fascinating because this is the same logic that Rian Johnson uses. He said if you ignore the source material, you ignore Star Wars Legends, if you ignore the way he's described in marketing blurbs, if you just focus on Luke's actions and his words, everything we see from him in the original trilogy, Luke in the sequels is 100% consistent with all of that. The main reason being that until now, until the Mandoverse, Luke Skywalker never had a canon on-screen middle. We know Luke went through trauma and pain, shame after his nephew Ben turned to the dark side, but like Mark once said, Luke would never give up the fight, not permanently. He might go away for a bit, draw upon the ways of the Jedi, meditate, and then bounce back. So I do think it's a shame the way things turned out, but as we were saying in 2020 when Luke showed up, the Mandalorian signified a new hope for the Star Wars fandom. And then Mark says this: "But I've had my time. I'm appreciative of that. But I really think they should focus on the future and all of the new characters. And by the way, when I disappeared in The Last Jedi, I left my robes behind. And there's no way I'm gonna appear as a naked Force ghost." Well, I think he might have forgotten he was in The Rise of Skywalker, and his Force ghost definitely has robes. And look, on this idea that Mark Hamill is done with Luke, I don't know if I fully believe him, because even across Mando Season 2 and Book of Boba Fett, those were just glimpses of something bigger. And Dave once teased he wants to explore Ahsoka's relationship with Luke. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know if they're going to use the same technology, if they've improved it, but I have a hard time believing this is the last time we've seen Luke. One final interesting comment from Mark is he originally thought returning for The Force Awakens was a big mistake. And I've seen the way fans have responded to this, and people are a bit conflicted. On the one hand, it would have been very strange to not have Luke back, but on the other, fans were disappointed and angry with the Luke that we got. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about today in the comments down below. Did you enjoy this one? If you did, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.